Thank you for joining us for 3Bs on the Law podcast, hosted by Trisha Barita, Camille Canali, and Susan Dawson. Disclaimer, this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only, not meant to provide legal advice, and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Also remember, laws change or they differ by jurisdiction, so this is not a substitute for seeking legal counsel in your jurisdiction on the current law applicable to you.
Hi, welcome to 3Bs on the Law. We have a special edition today and a special guest. Leadership is such an important aspect of any company, especially in a time of transition during COVID. Good leadership is crucial. It's crucial for guiding companies and their employees on to bigger and better things. And Laguzza, like us, is also a boss. She's the CEO of The Works Consulting. It's a human resources and leadership development firm. We invited her to be our guest because she has great tips on helping people become not just good, but great leaders. So Anne, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on to help us talk about what makes a great leader today.
Thank you for having me. This is absolutely my favorite topic. So I'm so glad we can do it together.
We're so glad. So what we did, because leadership is such a big topic, is we asked Anne to pick her top 5 tips for being an effective leader.
Yeah, and I know she has so many more in her wheelhouse, but we're gonna limit it to 5 just so we can get some good stuff in here. So, Anne, what's the number 1 that you want to start with?
So number 1, I want to start with holding people accountable. And I feel like right now there's a lot of leaders almost waiting for things to like get back to normal, right? So like, we'll get back to normal, so we're not going to really hold people accountable. And I feel like I like to say like this is the normal for now. And we never know what's going to happen, but this is what we're dealing with. So we've got to start moving forward with holding people accountable. One of my clients shared with me recently that they said, we feel badly about holding someone accountable. They've got a lot to deal with at home, they're homeschooling, whatever, all the things that are going on for people. But to me, there's no time like the present. We can't. Who knows? This could be months, this could be years, right? This is our normal, like I keep saying. So we need to make sure to sort of dust off performance reviews, bring people back to what we're trying to do in our businesses, and actually hold people accountable.
And I think that's really great because that really goes to your second point, which is something that I'm very big on, which is clarifying expectations.
Absolutely. And so funny, I almost made that number 1, but I love the holding people accountable so much. But, I find that a lot of people, again, are telling me, and I work with so many leaders, and they're telling me, gosh, I want the right time to like reestablish expectations, or I want to know, how, if someone's worked for me for 10 years, how do I suddenly show up today and reestablish what my expectations are? Well, this is the best absolute time because nothing is as we've ever expected it or been through. I don't know anybody who's been through this. So this is a perfect time to sit down with your people and talk to them about what your values are, what you expect, and really get them back on track with where you're actually going.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Anne, because the right now you do get this feeling and sense that because things have sort of drifted off into this nowhere land. Some companies are teleworking. They've never done that before. Some of these leaders are trying to figure out how, especially some generational differences, certainly on how to handle these remote situations, or even just handle people asking off that have never asked off before because of certain situations related to COVID. Now they maybe feel weird or odd about setting forth, like you said, the holding them accountable and what those expectations are. So if you were going to say one way they could, easily communicate that, would that be something that you think should be in a group setting or an individual?
I think it should be individual because I think you have different expectations, or you potentially could, for each of your team members. So I just think you sit down with them and say, listen, no better time than the present to really go through and just make sure you and I are on the same track. Things have changed for a lot of people, so, whatever it is that's changed in your business, even if you're fully open again, I have a lot of essential service providers who've kind of been open through this whole thing. So even if you're still open, you can still reset expectations right now.
I like that.
One of the interesting things about if you don't clarify expectations and people don't know what's expected of them, you're really setting people up for failure.
100%. And you will find people will be off track for months, days, years, right? Because without knowing what the expectations are. I mean, I firmly believe that people don't go to work every day trying to miss your expectations. But if they don't have them,
right.
Really, I mean, they don't. I really don't think people do that. But if they don't know what they are or they haven't been clarified recently, they've just created their own list of what they are. And they're maybe running off to the side, doing their own thing. But as the leader, you're getting frustrated because they're not meeting your needs, but you haven't communicated that to them clearly.
Right. And some things have changed significantly for some companies, like people who are teleworking from home. And I think that you do have to have the conversation about what your expectations are and how those have changed because of the changed landscape.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's interesting. Yeah. Let's talk about what your number 3 is, because I really think that really lends into like the leadership thing is already like I feel like leadership's being challenged in America right now, like over across the board. There's just, besides just COVID-19, there's a lot of other things going on, economic issues within the business. There's, maybe cuts they're having to do to very good employees, what they normally would not be, like cutting salary or making them part-time or having to furlough them. And so it is truly a challenge to be a leader within a business or a company right now. So tell me a little bit about number 3 and how you think leaders can do that.
Awesome. So number 3 is take time to recognize and value your employees. And you're right. I mean, I feel like leaders have gotten even more added on their plate in terms of even managing like the PPE process. I mean, I know some companies actually have someone devoted to that, which is amazing, but not everybody does. So I feel like leaders are really overwhelmed and few are really getting the reinforcement they need. So that trickles down. So they forget to take the time to value their team members. But this is so important. It's like for leaders have got to dig deep right now and remember that even if they're not getting what they need, they have to turn around and give it to their team. And they've got to find things that they value about them and recognize them. And often when I say recognize, people say, oh, we don't have money for that or whatever, but it doesn't have to be financial. It's amazing what people can do with just some very well thought out feedback. Not just like, oh, hey, you did a great job today, Camille, but something much more specific and detailed about specifically what did you do that made my job easier today as a leader? How did you stand out? And that is all you need to do in terms of recognition. If you can throw on a gift card here and there, great. But that actually, at the end of the day, the quality of the feedback is going to be so much more important than the actual monetary gift that you could provide somebody.
And do you recommend when you give that type of feedback and recognition, do you recommend, for example, that they send an email to like the entire team, or if it's a small company to say, hey, Anne did this great marketing job the other day and she was on this great podcast. I'm just going to toot my own horn for a second.
I love it.
And we're so proud of her for, going out of her comfort zone and doing that. Or do you recommend that it be more like a one-on-one?
So I feel like it should be one-on-one first to really be meaningful. Employees, even before what we're going through, crave time with their supervisors. Like I always call it this, like, one-on-one, like they want to be eye to eye with their supervisor and hear why they are valued. So I think ideally one-on-one first. And then I think you have to know your employee, because some employees do not want to be recognized publicly. So I think that if there's a reason you feel it's important to recognize them publicly, then obviously discuss that with the employee and see if we can get them to agree. Some people will be all about it and want you to do it. So I think the public recognition is dependent upon the employee for sure.
Oh, that's really interesting. I would have thought that like a big kudos out to the company would be something that you were really for.
Right.
And
I'm not always
interesting. That's an interesting take on it that I actually hadn't really thought about, quite frankly.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of people who really don't, they don't like the public recognition. It embarrasses them, but they really do like to be valued, of course. And they like to hear that, but they'd rather not have it put out there publicly in front of other people. It almost like, I guess the feedback I've heard is it almost feels like it's devaluing what other people are doing. And they feel like there are a lot of people contributing to the team and they don't want it to appear that they're just, in their mind, a lot of times they're just doing what they should be doing, even though they appreciate the recognition for it.
Oh,
See,
point.
I love that. Yeah, those are not the type A personalities. Those are others.
Right.
No,
Believe me, every lawyer is probably like, we want to be heard. Everyone should know how great we are. It's just, so no, I'm kidding. Not all type A personalities are in law school, but there's quite a few of them. But yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
just throwing that in there.
Type A profession.
I love that.
So number 4 is actually probably my favorite, because anybody who listens to this podcast knows that I always say communicate and document. And so it's the first half of my
your shtick.
My shtick that I always say. So talk a little bit about that. I think I think communication is important. I struggle with it at times. I know everybody does, especially in times of stress like this.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you said that document piece too, because that can really fall under the accountable or even under communication. I keep telling leaders right now that even if you think you're communicating a lot, like 5 times that communication right now, because I bet you're communicating less than you even realize. And until an employee tells you that you're over communicating with them, like you're good, right? Until you hear that feedback, like, please, you're over communicating. Just stop. However, I do want to say that I think it should be effective communication. I think just running more Zoom meetings isn't what everyone's looking for, because some leaders are feeling like, oh, I'm doing a good job. Every meeting's a Zoom meeting now, or every time I talk to someone, it's a Zoom meeting. It doesn't need to be that way, or I'm inviting the whole team to every communication that I'm having. I am a fan of face-to-face, and that can be virtual or in person. I think that should happen once every day with every team member. If you were normally in an office, or previously in an office, let's say, I'm sure it did happen. If you're not in an office right now, you're going to have to make that happen. But it doesn't need to be a formal, like I'm having a meeting with somebody. It can just literally be like, oh, if I was in the office today, let's just say the example would be, I might walk by someone's cubicle or their office and say, oh, I have a quick question. Just do that same thing with, we use Teams in my office. So instead of a audio call, I just do a video call. Just, oh, hey, I just want to run something by you really quick. And it's 2 or 3 minutes, but they get to see my face. They hear me. They know what kind of day I'm having. I get to know what kind of day they're having. And the connection is so important.
Right.
So important.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm sitting here thinking, man, that means I got to get out of my pajamas before lunchtime. Right? I mean,
at least just put a shirt on.
It's very important. I mean,
Camille, don't advertise that.
I make it a point, every day that I speak with my assistant every day. It's one of my kind of non-negotiable things that I think is very important. Even if it's just to say, hey, like, what are you doing? How are things going? Do you need anything? Because since you're not visually sometimes, and I don't visually see mine, so I think your idea is fantastic, but you don't always know what's going on behind the scenes unless you have the conversation instead of emailing.
Now,
so I think that's a great point.
And that may not be practical for all businesses where they're on the phone or they have a job where they're needing to interact and they can't just be pulled aside like that. Because I could see where that would work in some settings. If you're managing 20 people, that might be a big task for you to talk to them on Zoom for even a short period of time and catch them all throughout the day, while you're still trying to do your management skills. So in another sense, would there be other ways for you to touch them besides trying to, get them in some sort of like visual, virtual setting?
So I will tell you, I'm a little tough on this. I'm not going to lie. So first of all, I think if someone's managing 20 people, we should have a discussion because that's too many people. That's too many people for you to be directly managing them, right? Your team might be really big, but hopefully you have layers of leaders who can take over that next step. But I think like Camille said, I guess the only backup would be then at least a voice communication every single day where they're actually hearing you talk. It's just, I was coaching a leader and she was telling me that like she only has 5 or 6 people on her team. It's not huge, but she had realized days had gone by and yes, she was emailing and texting, but she hadn't had any voice conversation with them at all in days. And just literally because it just slipped her mind and they didn't seem to reach out to her. So I just think it's really important to make that a priority. So if you can't do it every day, then I would say do it every other day. If you can't do it every other day, go every 3 days. Like that's how I inch through with my leaders. Like, what's the next step that you can do?
See, for all those listeners out there, I just negotiated that for you. That was that's what
too many.
That's a lawyer negotiating Ann down from her called every day. Sorry about that, Anne. Okay. I'm just feeling for all those people going, what?
I know. You know what? I hear it from leaders all the time, but I really believe that you have to have time to be a leader. And I know that businesses don't set it up that way, but it's just part of the deal. It's like you have to make the time to connect with your people.
Right. And this COVID has really magnified the importance of that, I think.
Yes.
Because of how some businesses have had to transition people home and not necessarily in the workplace to have that what I call more casual face-to-face interaction every day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. You don't have to get out of your pajamas. Just be in your pajamas. Who cares?
Don't encourage her, Anne. Don't.
All right. So your last tip I actually really love.
So number 5 is be resilient. And I think that, leaders more than ever need to be able to quickly assess information that's coming their way, make a decision and then figure out how we're moving forward. You guys actually said something that I say all the time now. And I don't know if it was both of you or all 3 of you when you were on, but you guys said something about building a bridge while you're standing on it. And it was so awesome. It was in one of your podcasts. And I was like, I say this all the time now. And that's really what I feel like leaders need to be very resilient right now. One skill of being able to be resilient is going to make leaders the most successful they can be right now. A lot of leaders right now, I feel like, are sort of waiting for direction from the top, right? If they're not the top, they're waiting for directions from the top. And I want them to stop waiting and make decisions on the information they have today. But also, you have to, again, going back to communicate with your teams though, and say, we may go in one direction and tomorrow we may make a hard left, and then we might make a hard right. And it is what it is. I need you to hang in there. I'm not making decisions or changing my mind to make you crazy. I'm changing my mind based on information that I'm getting and trying to redirect in the best way possible.
And I think that goes back into your communication skill. All of this is so intertwined, all of these issues, but I think it makes it better.
Yes.
To focus on a few of them at a time rather than trying to change everything all at once.
Right.
All right.
I totally agree.
Pick one. What would your top tip?
Oh, well, I talk about this all the time. It's valuing your employees. Number 1. I think that goes so far to really tell people what you value about them, what they bring to the team, and how they're going to help you move forward.
I think that's fantastic. And if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn under my name at Ann Laguzza. I do have a Facebook page under my company, The Works Consulting. And of course, we have a website, theworksconsulting.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. As you know, we usually do a 3B showdown. And today's your favorite ice cream.
Oh, and I just get to guess, say what my favorite ice cream is?
We're going to give you 3 choices.
Okay.
And if you pick the one that all 3 of us, by the way, initially picked the exact same flavor,
we all get a point.
So we're going to go chocolate, strawberry, or vanilla.
Oh, wow. Those are so simple. Except that it's also very hard. Okay, I'm going to go strawberry.
Oh, well, I definitely didn't lose because strawberry is not my flavor. So California is out of this one.
Yeah. I picked vanilla. So Susan wins.
Susan wins her first win, and she's not even here. By the way, all 3 of us picked mint chocolate chips. So if anybody is ever feeling generous and wants to ship us some ice cream, it's mint chip for all 3 of us.
Same. That is my favorite ice cream. My favorite.
So I just want to say for Texans, mine's Bluebell vanilla, because we love a Bluebell down here. And I also want to note, Ian, that was a great point that you said about building a bridge when we're on it. That neither one of the 3Bs came up with that. That was actually our guest during our testing, and she was really incredible.
Thank you. I remember it. So thank you for clarifying. I remember it. I have been quoting it since and telling everybody where I got it from.
Wow.
So
that was Dr. Ann said that, and we actually have all used it because it's fabulous.
I love it.
For sure. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us on this edition of 3Bs on the Law.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast of 3Bs on the Law. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. We also welcome any comments. If you'd like to get in touch with us or suggest a future topic, you can email us at 3THREEBsonthelaw@gmail.com. And because we're lawyers, we need to remind you that this podcast is not meant to provide you with legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.